So again, my name is Dr. Rob Brewer. I work in the Doctor of Ministry department here at TKU. And about 60% of my job is involved with working with doctoral students, particularly in their dissertations. Here at TKU, we call it a project. And I work with them in over the course of 8 semesters getting ready to write. And then I am with them as they are in the writing process. And then in addition to that, 40% of my role is teaching in the seminary here at TKU. I do several classes in the seminary and also do some undergrad classes as well. So some of you may filter into one of my classes at some point, and I look forward to that day. Now, a couple of things before we really get into the content. You're going to get to do something in this class, this session, that you probably don't get to do in most of your other classes. You're going to get to use your phone. So I want you to take out your phone and pull up your messaging app. And I want you in the to field to type in 22333. Don't worry, you're not going to be giving me money here. You're not sending anything to my bank account. In the message part, type this, DRBR, for Dr. Brewer. Now, your phone's probably going to want to autocorrect to debt. So don't let it do that. DRBR, and then press send. DRBR, and press send. You should get a message back in just a second that says you're in Dr. Brewer's room or you're in Rob Brewer's room or something like that. Is there anyone who didn't get that?
We're old school over here.
You're old school? Okay. Do y'all know what messaging is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how to get into it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So right here where it says new, hit that. And then where it says recipient, type in 22333. Were you able to get, oh, she's got you over there. All right, good.
Nothing like having senior citizens.
Well, I tell you what, I'm heading that way pretty quick, and I'm finding technology is passing me by. I'm getting my kids to help me with technology. I used to help other people. Those of you that are watching online, this is not really going to work for you, because by the time you watch this, it will be closed. So very sorry. Thanks for trying. All right, so we'll go ahead and move forward. This is an interactive question here. The question is, how many children does Dr. Brewer have? If you think I have 1 child, type in the letter A and press send. If you think I have 2, press B and send. 3, press C and send. And if you think it's 4, press D and send. All right, so we've got 4 people that have voted so far. We're up to 7 now. So about almost half of you, it's between 3, 4 went down. And 2 can't, it doesn't even seem like it's making its way up there. We've got 10 people that have voted, a few more moments that will, okay, we're up to 12 now, 42 and 42. Oh, some of you think I have 1 child. Okay, very good. A few more seconds. It's hovering at 12. Okay, the correct answer for this question is, I have 4 children. So those of you that answered 4 correctly, these are my 4 children right here. This is my youngest over here. This is Regan. Then this is my about to be 20-year-old Rebecca, my 22-year-old Rachel, and then my 24-year-old Jacob. 2 of these have been married, and it's not the youngest one over there. So praise the Lord for that. All right, so here's the next question. How many, let's see if it comes up. How many grandchildren does Dr. Brewer have? How many grandchildren? If you think I have 0, type in A. Let me make sure that this is actually working here. I'm not sure that it is. There we go. All right, so if you think I have 0 grandchildren, type in A. 1, type in B, 2, type in C, 3, type in D. All right, we are racing here. 1 and 2 is racing. We've got 9 people that have voted so far. None of you think, oh, whoa, there's one person who thinks I have 3 grandkids. We're at 10. We'll give it a couple of more moments to vote. 11 have voted now. 1 seems to be winning pretty strongly. But 0 and 2 are pretty well tied. So the correct answer to this question, how many grandchildren does Dr. Brewer have? He has one grandbaby. And pretty much the rest of this session is going to be me showing pictures of the grandbaby, because that's what granddaddies do. So this is Ivy, and Ivy is just an amazing little girl. She was born in August of last year, and she is tremendous. Ivy and I are having a little problem right now because she is used to her mommy, and she is used to her grandmommy, my wife, and she is not used to men like me that have long hair and hairy faces. So I intimidate her right now, but we're working on it, and I'm not shaving off the beard or cutting my hair. So she's just going to have to get used to it. All right, so we're going to use this tool throughout the rest of the session today to help you interact, and we will be engaging as we move through. But what we want to talk about today, the next few minutes, is the ins and outs of writing. Now, when I went to get my bachelor's degree, I have to tell you, I was not a very good student. I did not do a very good job writing. I struggled with my writing, and the professors told me I was supposed to cite stuff, but I didn't know what I was supposed to cite. You know, you go to the library and you get books, and you find books that you think are interesting and think they have something to say, so that you can put them in your writing. But they're like filler material to help you fulfill the requirements of the professor's assignment, right? They're not actually, you don't actually use those things for anything substantive. You're just showing that you know how to find books and that you know how to make citations in your paper. And that's what I did. That's how I spent my bachelor's degree. And honestly, I don't know how I graduated, but I learned that the expectations are low when it comes to that. And so they'll almost let you put in anything. And since then, I've discovered that they can't just fail everyone, because it would look bad on us if we did that, if we failed everyone. Instead, as we're grading, we're rolling our eyes going, oh my goodness, this doesn't make any sense, and I have no idea why this person put that in there. The thing is you know that too, and you still turn it in. I did too. I knew this resource here, I have no idea why I put it here. I needed 10, all I had was 8, and so I went and grabbed 2 others from some magazine, never even read it before, and it's in Hebrew. And so I put it in there. And then I went and did my master's degree. And so as I entered into my master's degree, I remembered how bad I was in my bachelor's degree. And so I was kind of terrified. And I kind of did the same thing in my first paper. You know, you try to do a little bit better. And of course, I didn't go straight from my bachelor's degree into my master's degree. There was some adulting between that. And so there's a lot more maturity and a lot more experience, and I really wanted to do well. And so I did the best I could, but I still didn't have a clue what I was doing. I'm trying, it doesn't make any sense. How am I supposed to cite? Like, what do I cite? What is it I'm supposed to cite? I'm not sure what I'm supposed to cite and what I'm not supposed to cite. And when do I put it in and when do I not? It was just really confusing for me. And so I turned in that first paper and I thought, I'm going to get a C on this. I mean, I could have done so much better. And I got the paper back and I got an A on that. And that instant, something turned in my mind. And I realized at that point how much I loved learning, because I knew I could do so much better. And so from that point, I began this exploration. I was about 33, 34 at the time, I began this exploration to understand, how do you do this better? And that led me eventually into a PhD at Texas A&M University, which was very, very different. Thank you. The Lord bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you. That's a totally different level of writing. And what I want to introduce to you today are 3 tools that were incredibly helpful for me in my journey that were more thinking kind of tools that enabled me to rise above my peers. Because these 3 tools that I'm going to show you today will enable you, if you'll use them. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it won't take any practice. It's going to take lots and lots and lots of practice for you to become comfortable and adept at using this. But if you'll use these, you will filter up to the top 1% of your peers in terms of your writing, because nobody's doing this, even at the doctoral level. So I'm having to teach some of this information to doctoral students that are still kind of doing the same thing that I was doing as a undergrad, trying to figure out how to write. But let's ask a couple of questions, and hopefully this will work. Let's see if it works. There, it's working. Praise the Lord. All right, so the question, if you can't read it up at the top, is this. What do you think is the hardest part of research? Is it A, finding resources? Is it B, how to use resources? Or is it C, citation? A, finding resources. B, how to use resources. Or C, citation. 10 people have voted. We'll give it a few more moments. 11, 12. Okay, so most of you are saying how to use resources. Citation is coming in second, and then finding resources third. So let me just hear from one of you. As I ask questions, if y'all will remind me to repeat the question so that we can get it on the camera. If I don't, y'all help me too. If I don't remember to repeat the question, they won't be able to hear it on the camera, and we want to keep them involved the whole time. So though someone that said the hardest part of research is how to use resources. Tell me what you mean by that. Yes, ma'am. Tell me your name. Bonnie. Okay, great. Your name is very familiar to me. Have you been in one of my classes before? Vanessa. Yes, that's right. Yes. Okay, wonderful. Oh, there's a microphone there for you.
Okay. So my thoughts are regarding how to incorporate using resources with my writing. It's how do I have my own thoughts surrounding and supporting what this source says.
Yes, that's
of an academic nature.
That is actually one of the most common responses to that question is, how do I include my own thoughts in this? Otherwise, it just becomes like a summary of what someone else said, right? And part of the assignment is to demonstrate your own thinking. It's not to just recite what someone else has said. It's to integrate your own thoughts into this. And so today I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to integrate your thoughts into the thoughts that other people are having. Okay, so let's go to the next question. When should you include a citation? When should you include a citation? A, when you make a claim. B, when you include a fact. C, for everything. D, never. Citation is overrated. A, when you make a claim. B, when you include a fact. C, for everything. D, never. Citation is overrated. And what is becoming clear is that we feel like I'm supposed to cite for everything. And that is a real feeling, right? Like every sentence I need to cite. I need to have that little superscript number after every period. and then I write another sentence, and I have another superscript number, and so on and so on and so on. It feels like I have to cite for everything. And so if that is true, how do I include my thoughts into this paper? So what I want to do today is go this direction. Every one of us can improve our research writing by following 3 rules of forming an argument. So the tool I want to give you today, I want to give you a tool called 3 rules. And we're going to use these 3 rules to form an argument. Now, when I say an argument, I'm not talking about the kind of thing that you have with your spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, where you're trying to fight. An argument is a contention that you are making that you have to show is valid. And all of academic writing is making an argument. Everything and academic writing involves making an argument. Even if you are doing a book review, you are making an argument that this was my perception of the book. Every piece of academic writing involves making an argument. That's not the same thing as trying to persuade someone. Persuasion is you're trying to get them over onto your side and believe what you believe. An argument is simply where you're making a case and you're supporting the case with evidence. And so we're going to look at 3 rules to form an argument. Here are the 3 rules. Number 1, affirming the affirmed. Number 2, denying the denied. And number 3, relying on resources. Now, I know you don't know what those mean. It's okay. I'm going to teach you what those mean. Number 1 is affirming the affirmed. Number 2 is denying the denied. And number 3 is relying on resources. These are the 3 rules. These are the 3 tools. If you will do these 3 tools, those of you watching online, if you will do these 3 tools, if you will integrate these 3 tools, it will make your writing better. You can use this not only in writing, you can use it in conversation. You can use it in discussions. They're very, very powerful tools, and they're very, very ancient. They're very, very old. And the problem is, as new generations come, we tend to look at the old stuff and say that's no longer useful. But this is incredibly powerful material right here. Affirming the affirmed, denying the denied, and relying on resources. So let's take a look at rule number 1, affirming the affirmed. When you want to affirm the affirmed, there's 3 steps to it. And I'm going to introduce a word to you. The word is the word premise. Premise means, here is my statement. Here is my idea. And so the first step is to introduce a premise. You make a claim. Now let's talk about this claim for a second. It's going to take a conditional format. The conditional format is this: if, then. If I'm holding a microphone, then I am teaching. If I'm holding a microphone, then I am teaching. If I am standing at the front of the classroom, then I am teaching. If I made a PowerPoint, then I am teaching. It takes the if, then form. Secondly, it must be accepted. Now, here's the reason it must be accepted. Premise 1 demonstrates that you are a critical thinker. And when I say it must be accepted, the reader or the hearer must accept that the claim you're making is acceptable. So when I say, if I am holding a microphone, then I am teaching, you must accept that claim in order for me to move forward. If you don't accept it, we'll talk about what happens later. But right now we're assuming that the professor, whoever you're talking to, that they're going to accept the claim. The claim, premise 1, is what demonstrates you are utilizing your own noggin up here. This is your idea up here. This is your contention. Step 2 is to offer a fact. Now, the fact affirms the if statement. That's where we get this affirming the affirmed. It supports the if statement. So, if I am holding a microphone, then I am teaching a class. Step 2 would be to affirm the if statement. I am holding a microphone. I offered a fact. I am holding a microphone. Now, this is where you need to cite it. When you offer this fact, you need to offer proof for the fact. It would be inappropriate for me to say, if I am holding a microphone, then I am teaching a class. According to me, I am holding a microphone. That would be inappropriate. Instead, I would need one of you or someone else to say, it sure does look like Dr. Brewer is holding a microphone. Someone outside of me has to concur with that fact. That fact has to come from someone outside of me. And this tends to be where one of the problems lies. We tend to cite facts based on our observation, based on our experience, based on what a friend has told us. But when we talk about step 2 in offering a fact, it's first of all got to affirm the if statement. The first part of the if then, it's got to affirm that, and then it has to be cited by something that is trustworthy. It can't just come from me. I'm not trustworthy enough. It can't just come from my best friend. They're not trustworthy enough. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Step 3 is to do this. Draw the conclusion. And the conclusion infers the then statement. So if I am holding a microphone, then I am teaching a class. I offer a fact. According to the most recent video, Dr. Brewer was holding a microphone. The conclusion would then be, therefore, Dr. Brewer is teaching a class. This is called a logical argument, and it's affirming the affirmed. Let's do a couple of examples so you can see. Let's say in premise 1 that if I saw the clock at 11 p.m., then I was up too late. Now, does this follow the rule that we said on step 1? Is there an if-then statement? Do you see how I'm making a claim? My claim is, if I saw the clock at 11 p.m., then I was up too late. It's my claim. It's my contention. It's my idea. And you may look at me and say, you know what, I don't know that I agree with that. Because if I see the clock at 11 p.m., I'm right on time. But my contention is, if I saw the clock at 11 p.m., then I was up too late. So that's step 1, right? I have put an if-then statement there. And again, you have to accept it. If you don't accept it, I got to do something else. But let's just for the moment assume you accept it. Then step 2, premise 2, I saw the clock at 11 p.m. Now, does that align with step 2 that we talked about earlier? Yes, it does. I am stating a fact. But what do I need to do in order to make this fact worthwhile in my argument? I need to cite it, right? Now notice that it affirms the if statement. It affirms what follows after if and stops before the then comes in. So it affirms the if. So it affirms this sentence right here. I saw the clock at 11 p.m. There it is, the fact. I saw the clock at 11 p.m. and I have to cite it. So my citation is this. According to my wife, I saw the clock at 11 p.m. That would then become my point of citation. That's where I would insert the truth of someone else to support my claim. And then I would draw a conclusion. Therefore, now these 3 dots right here in logic terminology means therefore. When you see 3 dots, what does that mean? Online, when you see 3 dots, what does that mean? You just talk to the screen and nobody's in the room with you. That's funny. So 3 dots means therefore. I was up too late. It infers the then statement. So again, notice that my if statement is a fact that has to show up right here. My then statement is my conclusion that has to show up right here after my therefore. And if I do that, I have made a logical argument that affirms the affirmed, and I can put that into my paper. Now, I'll show you how to write that out here in just a second, because I wouldn't write it out exactly this way. Right now, this is a thinking tool. This is a tool that I can use to step back and say, what is it I want to say? So often, I'll come right here. I'll actually begin right here. I was up too late. And that's the conclusion I want to say. But how do I get there? Well, I have to have 2 other pieces. First, I have to form the claim. And part of that claim has to be a statement of if that will be a fact that I can then cite. And if I make a claim that demonstrates my own thought, and if I include a fact, now I have a very valid, reliable, and actually rigorous conclusion. Because my conclusion is based on my idea and someone else's idea that I've combined together into one whole. Let's do another one and then I'll take some questions. Premise 1, if my alarm went off at 5 a.m., then I was up too early. Fits the rules. I've got an if-then statement. If this happened, then this is true. If the first part is true, then the second part is true. So what would you guess would be the second step that I need to write down? My alarm went off at 5 a.m. So my second step would be that my alarm went off at 5 a.m. I need to cite a fact here. Or again, premise 2 is a fact, so I need to cite it, right? What might I use for a citation? Someone tell me what I might use for a citation. How would I cite that? How about this? According to my iPhone records, my alarm went off at 5 a.m. Now, maybe I could have fudged my iPhone records, or maybe Apple is secretly getting into my iPhone and jacking around with my iPhone records, which they're liable to do. If anyone at Apple is watching this, that's not true. I'm not continuing. But I'm citing a source outside me to say the alarm went off at 5 a.m. So again, it's not just my opinion, it's not just my thought, it's not just what someone else has said. According to this fact, according to my iPhone records, my alarm went off at 5 a.m. So then what would my conclusion be? I was up too early. Therefore, I was up too early. And that would be true, wouldn't it? I mean, if anybody's alarm is going off at 5 a.m., and you're getting up, then that's way too early. Even Jesus doesn't arise at 5 a.m. It's just ridiculous that anyone would awake at 5 a.m. But again, I have a very, very valid argument here. Now let me take it a step further. I can actually combine the 2 arguments I made into a deeper argument. Step 1, if I was up too late and up too early, then I didn't get enough sleep. What would step 2 sound like? No, we don't say not yet. We don't say I didn't get enough sleep. We got to do the if part first. And I was up too late and up too early. I got to cite it, right? I've already cited it, so I just simply say, as previously shown. I already cited that I was up too late and up too early. I already made the argument there, so I don't have to repeat the argument. So really, what I've done is create 3 paragraphs. My first paragraph was arguing that I was up too late. My second paragraph was arguing that I was up too early. And my third paragraph is arguing that because of these 2 things, I didn't get enough sleep. And therefore, my conclusion is I didn't get enough sleep. These are powerful, this is a powerful tool in your thinking. When you're trying to figure out how do I integrate my thinking with someone else's thinking, right here in premise 1 is your thinking. You make a claim. If, then. If, then. If this is true, then this is true. Then you show, according to someone else's thoughts, the if is true. And since the if is true, the connection I made between these 2 things is true. Therefore, this is true. You've made a valid and sound argument. If you will think through this and think this way and write this way, your professors will, I won't say what they'll be amazed. So what would this look like in writing? It would look something like this. In recent days, I have not been getting enough sleep. Staying awake past 11 p.m. keeps me up too late. According to my wife, I saw the clock at 11 p.m., so I was up too late. Notice that I've cited that right here. But I also have been getting up too early. Anything before 5 a.m. is way too soon. My iPhone records indicate my alarm has been sounding at 5 a.m., so I've been getting up too early. I've cited that. Since I've been staying up too late and getting up too early, I've not been getting enough sleep. So I took my first argument, my second argument, and then the combination of the 2 arguments and created this paragraph, which is a valid and rigorous way of coming to this final conclusion that I've not been getting enough sleep. I had to take 3 steps to get there, but when I did, I've made a very, very sound conclusion that someone else is going to have to demonstrate is not true. They're going to have to show some other things that are true because I have put some stuff out here that I'm claiming is true, and I've cited it. And this is how you affirm the affirmed. Let me just pause and see if you have any questions about this. I can see the wheels moving. This is brand new information for some of you, and I get that. Oh, can you speak into the mic?
I was just asking, was like number 1, the number that highlights the citation goes at the end, not at the beginning?
Right, that's exactly right. So for citation, most of us here use Turabian. Some places, like the Messianic classes, they'll use SPL, but it's mostly Turabian. It's really just a change in formatting in a couple of places. The citation goes after the period, and then there would be a footnote down here that gives the information of that citation, and in particular the page number. And then my bibliography would have all the details of that particular resource that I utilized. Yeah. And so in this paragraph, I would have 2 footnotes that would lead to 2 different bibliographies and support my contention right here. Everybody with me? Okay. Let's practice a little bit. Phones back out. If you have a current password, then you can log on to the network. That's premise 1. Premise 2, you have a current password. Therefore, you can log on to the network. The question is this written correctly? A, yes. B, no. We're at about 10. Give it a few more seconds. Looks like the majority of you are answering no. Okay, someone that answered no, what do you think is missing? A what? A citation. Yes, where would you put the citation? You would have to do it after the phrase, you have a current password. It would have to be cited right here because you're stating a fact. You have a current password. How do you know? Well, according to this fact, according to this citation over here, you have a current password. Is there anything else wrong with it? Yeah?
Do you not necessarily have to have the therefore? You just say you can log on to the network?
Go ahead and say that into the microphone.
Do you have to add the therefore at the beginning of the last sentence?
No, you don't. I put it there to make things easy for us in this setting. You'll notice in the written piece that I didn't use the word therefore, but I did use words that are like therefore. I used so, because, and those words help me connect the conclusion to the argument that I'm making. So apart from the citation, everything else here is accurate. I've got an if-then, I have a fact, and I'm drawing the conclusion. The fact is supporting the you have a current password. It's supporting the if, and the conclusion is drawn from the statement you can log on to the network. Am I still going to 115 or okay? So again, we've already dealt with this. The question is, it's the same issue, which statement needs to be cited, and we've already determined that it's the one that says you have a current password. It says this, if my friends are coming over tonight, then I will bake a cake. We're just going to assume that step 2 has been cited and that it's true. My friends are coming over tonight. Therefore, I will bake a cake or I won't bake a cake. Hold on, it's not showing up quite yet. I will bake a cake or I won't bake a cake. 100% of you are saying I will bake a cake. This is good news for me. I love cake. Excellent. All of you are going to be baking a cake, and I can't wait. I love red velvet with cream cheese icing, so be sure you bring that next time. Yes, you are correct. If my friends are coming over tonight, then I will bake a cake. Assuming step 2 is true, my friends are coming over tonight, therefore, I will bake a cake. Excellent, excellent. If Jack is innocent, then he has an alibi. Now my conclusion, the question is this, how can I conclude that Jack is innocent? A, show that he has an alibi, or B, you can't as written. If Jack is innocent, then he has an alibi. How can I conclude that Jack is innocent? Most of you are saying, show that he has an alibi. A couple of you think that you can't as it's currently written. All right, the correct answer here is that you cannot as it's currently written. Because you cannot replace the if with the then. Your conclusion can only be, the way it's written, that he has an alibi. You cannot conclude, based on the way it's written, that Jack is innocent. And this is actually one of the fallacies that most of us make when we're writing. We assume that if I can show the second part, then the first part is true. Or if I can show the first part, then the second part is true. But it doesn't work that way. You have to show the first part, then the second part is true. If you can show the second part, then that is actually your true part, and you are showing something else. You're not showing that first part. So back to this right here. If my alarm went off at 5 a.m., then I was up too early. If I want to come along and say I was up too early, this right here, remember, it's this piece that's supposed to be right here. Is that me? That's my office phone, sorry. If my alarm went off at 5 a.m., then I was up too early. My alarm went off at 5 a.m. is the part that's supposed to be right here. But I was up too early. Problem is, I can't do this. It's illegal. You'll go to jail. No, you won't go to jail. You just won't get an A. Therefore, my alarm went off at 5 a.m. This cannot be done. It is a fallacy. You cannot conclude, in your conclusion, you cannot conclude the if statement. The conclusion has to be the then statement. Any questions about that? I know this is deep and your brains are churning right now, but this is a very, very logical way. This part right here is not. But what I first showed you is a very, very logical way to make an argument in your writing. Yes, ma'am. Tell me your name.
Michaela.
Michaela, will you speak into the mic?
So on the previous one, if the statements had been flipped, like put in opposite places, then you would have been able to conclude and prove.
So this right here,
Yes.
if Jack has an alibi, then he is innocent?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Then I can conclude that Jack is innocent. But I would have to put the Jack is innocent part after the then. And the if would have to be he has an alibi. But then what would I have to prove? That he has an alibi. Yeah. Okay. I have to conclude the then statement. I have to prove the if statement. I cite the if statement. I conclude the then statement. If this is true, and then I'm going to show that it is true, then that thing over there is true. Again, it shows that I'm thinking, that I am critical in my thinking, that I'm making a claim, that I'm using someone else's thoughts, and that I'm drawing a conclusion. And that is affirming the affirmed. I'll see if I can do this one fairly quickly. Oh, yeah, one more. This is called, in Latin, it's called modus ponens. That is the logical name for it. If you study logic, you will learn that this is what I've just taught you. Affirming the affirmed is called modus ponens. And it looks like this. If P is true, then Q is also true. And then you cite that P is true, therefore Q is true. There is another one I want to show you called modus tollens. It looks like this. If P is true, then Q is also true. Same thing that we had, step one. So now I'm into rule 2, denying the denied. Rule 1 was affirming the affirmed. Rule 2 is denying the denied. But in step 2, I cite that Q, the then statement, is actually not true. So before, I said the if statement was true. And in step 2, I had to say that if the if statement was true. In modus tollens, step 2, I say the then statement. That's the piece I'm citing. But now I'm saying it's not true. And if the second part is not true, then the first part, is not true. It's very important that what you see here is that I eliminated, deleted accidentally the not. It should be therefore P is not true. So this is a typo. Therefore, P is not true. Let's look at a couple of examples to see how that would work. Again, I'm going to make a claim. It's going to take a conditional format, the if-then statement. It must be accepted. Step 2, I'm going to offer a fact, but now I'm going to deny the then statement. And it must be cited, just like in modus ponens, it must be cited. And then I'm going to draw the conclusion that infers the if statement. Let's look at the example. If I was in bed on time, then I was asleep by 11 p.m. Now, step 2, what is it I want to deny? Do I want to deny the if or do I want to deny the then? I want to deny the then. So I need to deny that I was asleep by 11 p.m. Again, it takes an if-then form, and it must be accepted. So I'm going to say, my fact is that I was not asleep by 11 p.m. It denies the then statement. It's the opposite of the then statement. And again, it must be cited. So my citation here would be, according to my wife, I was not asleep by 11 p.m. Therefore, I was not in bed on time. Another way to say that would be, I was up too late. So I actually have the same conclusion that I did in affirming the affirmed. I just went at it a different way. I denied the second part. I cited the fact of the first part and was able to draw a conclusion that is actually the same as in the first example I gave under affirming the affirmed. And here I'm inferring the then statement. Here's another one. If I slept in, then I did not see my clock at 5 a.m. Which one am I going to deny? Then I did not see my clock at 5 a.m. What would be the opposite of I did not see my clock at 5 a.m.? I saw my clock at 5 a.m. So you take the opposite of it. Even though there is a not in here, and that sounds negative and denying, remember, I am taking the opposite of the second statement, and I'm going to cite that as my fact. And here I'll say, according to my iPhone records, my alarm went off at 5 a.m. Therefore, I did not sleep in. Or in other words, I was up too early. And again, I can combine them together. If I got enough sleep, then I was in bed on time and I slept in. But I was not in bed on time, nor did I sleep in, as previously shown. Therefore, I didn't get enough sleep. Now, would I be able to put I did not get enough sleep right here and then say, therefore, I was not in bed on time and did not sleep in? Do I need to wrap it up? Okay. Could I do that? No. I'm breaking the same rule. So under modus ponens, I have to cite this one as a fact. Under modus tollens, I cite this one as a fact, but I cite its opposite. And those are two of the three rules that you can utilize to deepen your thinking and to write better. I would give you the third one, which would totally change your world. I mean, it would completely change everything about your writing, and it's actually the secret to the other two, but they won't let me do it. So, sorry. Now, in order for this to work, you've got to practice, practice, practice. Your Your instinct here is going to say, this is too hard, I can't do this. And you're going to walk off and have lunch and forget about this. And your writing will be the same. But if you will practice this, search on Google for modest ponens, modest tollens, find practice exercises, then it will change your world in your writing. Thank you guys, I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brewer. I just want to give you guys a chance, if you have a 1:15 class, to go ahead and be dismissed. I don't want to keep you over if your professors are waiting for you. If you don't, and we want to open up a more extensive Q&A, we can go ahead and do that right now. And then maybe Dr. Brewer will come back next semester and give us the secret sauce that was in step 2 that we missed. I'm sorry we got started a little late today, that we didn't get to that point, but we can go ahead and open up a Q&A at this time.
All right, any questions? Yes, ma'am. What's the third thing? Before I get to the secret sauce, let's see if there's any other questions about these first two that I talked about. Secret sauce before you have to go. You always want the easy way, don't you? Any questions? All right, I'll give you the secret sauce. It's relying on resources. Let me give you 7 ideas about good resources. How to find good resources and what a good resource is and what it is not. Number 1, it supports the fact of premise 2. That's what you're looking for. When you are trying to find resources, you want to find something that supports the fact of premise 2. So when I was going into the library and just finding books that had something to do with my topic and then including that somewhere in there, I was not utilizing a good resource because I hadn't thought through what is the fact I need to cite. I was just trying to have enough resources in the bibliography so that I could get the grade that I wanted. But I wasn't actually writing. I wasn't making an argument. I wasn't pressing forward on the issue. So I need to find resources that support the fact I'm trying to make, support my conclusion. And that means I need to know what my argument is before I start looking for the resources. Now, what happens if you get in there and you find out that the fact that you want to cite is actually wrong? You need to change your argument, because that means you're wrong. That which you want to cite has been shown not to be correct. So you need to change your argument. You can't just put it out there because you want it to be true. Because it already, that would mean you've already reached the actual conclusion you want. And critical thinking means I've thought through this is what I think is true, now I've got to go find the resources to support the fact that I'm trying to lay out there in premise 2. Number 2, good resources are not mere opinion. Now, most of the books that are published today are opinion. Are we still videoing?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to say something. No, I'm not. I don't want that on video. Most of the books are mere opinion. Say that with me. Most of the books. Okay, you got to work with me here. Say it again. Most of the books are mere opinion. Say it with me online. Most of the books are mere opinion. So when you go onto Amazon, most of the books that you buy there are mere opinion. Let me put it another way. Most books that pastors publish are opinion pieces. Now, they feel very substantive and very real because you've heard them in a sea of a lot of people, and so it feels real, and even your insides are resonating with what has been said, and so you're thinking, yes, this is true. It makes sense. But in an academic perspective, it's opinion. And so you need to avoid opinion books. If you are writing and you want to grab something from some popular pastor, to use as your citation for your fact, that's not a good resource. Not in the academic world. And I'll tell you why here in just a second when we get a little bit further. Number 3, this is why. Good resources offer vetted insight. Here's what I mean by vetted insight. Other people that are experts in that field have looked at what that book says and said, okay, yeah, it's pushing things forward. It's offering something we haven't seen before in a new way, and our expertise gives it a thumbs up. Most books that you purchase today don't go through that process. They have an editor, and they have a marketing team, and they have a publisher, but they don't go through a vetting process of the content to say, wait a second, you can't say that because we know that to not be true over here. It doesn't get vetted. And that's the problem when you utilize an opinion book. Even if you're using something within the opinion book that turns out to be true, there's a danger in using the opinion book because it hasn't been vetted. Therefore, we're not really sure what's true and what's not true. And that can go a whole set of ways right there. Number 4, good resources come from references. What do I mean by references? Well, in our context, I would mean things like Bible dictionaries, commentaries, the kinds of references that we would go down into the TKU library and pull out that give us deep information about a biblical passage. Those kinds of references. Generally, you can't check those out of the library. If you have a Bible software program like Logos, then you can have hundreds of commentaries and Bible dictionaries and all kinds of great tools that are in there. All of those would be considered references. They are considered academic because numerous people have looked at the content of them and they are being published for academic use. That's a good resource. References, and in particular, biblical references. Number 5 are peer-reviewed periodicals. Good resources are peer-reviewed periodicals. So it used to be that in higher education, I'll rephrase the statement. It used to be that higher education was the gold standard for new knowledge. New knowledge would be found by professors and researchers, and they would publish this new knowledge in what's called a journal. Now today, there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of journals. And it used to be that you had to go to a really high university to get access to those journals. Texas A&M, for example, pays close to $1 million a year to have access to most of the journals that exist in the world. $1 million just to access all of those different journals, because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of journals that are each producing millions of articles a month. Generally, these articles are about 20 pages in length, and they are very, very academic. They cure insomnia. If you read them, by the time you get to the second page, you will fall asleep. Big, giant words. What makes them powerful is they are peer-reviewed. What that means is, as a professor, if I wanted one of my articles, my contention of new knowledge, to show up in one of these journals, I would submit the article to the journal. They would take that article and they would give it to other peers of mine in my field. And those 4 or 5 peers would look at that article and judge it and say acceptable, not acceptable. And there's several ways that it can end up. And generally it has to go through a revision process, 4 or 5 different revisions. And if you can pass through that, then your article is published in the journal and it's claimed as new knowledge. Here's some new information. Someone hasn't thought about this idea this way before, and so we're putting it out there as new knowledge. It's peer-reviewed. Most of the things that we tend to read at night before we go to bed are not peer-reviewed. So journals, periodicals that are peer-reviewed are powerful. Time magazine, not peer-reviewed. U.S. News and World Report, not peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed magazines, journals sound like the Journal of Higher Education, something like that. Just for your own benefit, you don't really need to know this, but there's a whole new set of journals called open access journals that you can get the titles in there, you can get the articles in there for free. And the way that journal makes money is the author has to pay to have their article put in there. And you can kind of see the problem that if I pay enough, that I might be able to talk a journal into not peer reviewing my article, and they can make money, and I can get my article in a journal and claim that I published something. So that's why we've got to be a little bit careful with open access journals. They're not all bad. Some are very, very good, but there are some that are dangerous and not very good. Number 6, good resources come from academic publishers. So if you don't have a reference material, if you don't have a peer-reviewed periodical, what else could you have? Well, you could have something that comes from an academic publisher. This tends to be like our textbooks. Textbooks that are used in classes now. Not every textbook. I was going to say something there, and I'm going to walk that back. I'm not going to say that. Not every textbook comes from an academic publisher. But those that come from academic publishers can be viewed as reliable because those publishers are not going to publish nonsense. They have a reputation and a name to protect. And so they guard that name by ensuring that which they put out there is reliable and trustworthy material. And then the last one is this. Good resources are found in Scripture. We're at TKU. We're a Bible college. And even if you are taking like a worship major, you're doing it through a biblical perspective. So the Bible is always reliable. The Bible is always trustworthy. And we can always use that as a good resource. And so you can use Scripture as your citation for the fact that you want to make in premise 2. Yes, ma'am.
In other schools that I've been to, the Bible is not considered a good reference or resource because it's apparently not peer-reviewed, according to, I guess you could say, secular standards.
Right.
How would you address that?
Yeah. So the question was, in certain schools, the Bible is not considered reliable because it's not peer-reviewed. So how would you answer that? So the first thing I would say is our context offers a different thought, that it is reliable and it is trustworthy. So here, it's not going to be rejected. Secondly, at Texas A&M, when I was defending my dissertation, I could not cite Scripture in my dissertation. Why not? Because my audience wouldn't accept that source. And so what I've offered you here are the sources that are deemed acceptable within this context. And context is key. So you would not be able to take this and go to another university necessarily and implement it. You could probably go to Liberty University and implement it. You could go to ORU and implement it. You couldn't go to Texas A&M and implement it. You couldn't go to UCLA and implement it. You couldn't go into certain places in Harvard and implement it. And depending on the department at Harvard and the kind of classes you're in, even the divinity school at Harvard wouldn't allow certain pieces of Scripture to come in. And so the context is really going to be critical and fundamental on that. So that's really my response there. Now we can go into a whole dialogue that is the Bible reliable, but that's not the topic of what we're after here. So my response would simply be pay attention to your context and what your professors and your university is going to deem as reliable and trustworthy. Yes, sir.
Is it necessary to cite the Bible scriptures that you're using?
Is it necessary to cite biblical scriptures that you're using? Great question. So let's just say right here, I was citing this last statement as a fact, okay? And so then I would have the superscript number up there. It would be 1. Then in parentheses, I would have the location of the scripture. Romans, well, in our place here, I'll just say 2 Opinions 3:24. All right, so I found this in 2 Opinions 3:24. I'm citing it here. Then in my footnote, I give the information of that version that I got the passage from. From then on, I do not use the superscript whenever I am utilizing scripture. I'll just simply put in parentheses the passage. That is true until and unless I change versions. If I change versions, then I have to cite where I'm changing versions. It has to go into the footnote, and I have to put the information there that I'm now in a different version. If I go back to the previous version, I have to cite it again. So it's like stepping stones on a path. Every time I go to a new stone, I need to actually step on the stone. But if I don't go to a new stone, I can just kind of move around and just, now I'm facing this way, now I'm facing this way, now I'm facing this way. But I like the way this version says it better over here. So I've got to step over here, and I've got to cite that I've made that step. Okay? And I can turn this way, and I can turn this way. Here's my location. Now here's my location. I like the way Scripture says it over here better for what I'm going to say next. I cite. I come back over to this stone, and I have to cite that again. So every time you move stones, you have to cite with Scripture. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
So this isn't related to this, so can I ask another question?
Sure.
Okay. How would you say we would best organize our sources?
Give me a little more details. When you say organize, what do you mean?
For example, if you have a lot of different sources, and then how do you, and then ones that you're using or may use or may not use,
Yeah.
how do you keep them organized?
I utilize Zotero for my dissertation. I utilize it for all of my writing now. And right here are all of my different topics. So different classes, and then these are my resources. So let me jump over to my dissertation column because that will have a lot more in there. So these are all of the resources that I used for my dissertation. I can scroll down and you can see it just kind of goes on and on and on there. So that's going to be several hundred resources right there that I utilized. And what it does is it enables me to capture all of the information that I'm going to need related to that resource. This tool enables me, so like I can go to Amazon and I can find the ISBN of a particular book, and then I can just come here to the top and I can enter in the ISBN right there of that book. It will grab all of the information about that book and bring it into Zotero. Now here's 2 issues to watch. Number 1, it doesn't always bring in the information correctly. So you have to go in and make sure that it's correct. So as an example, if in your bibliography you are, when you're putting in the city and state of the publisher, if you abbreviate in the first bibliography, you have to abbreviate in all of them. You can't go back and forth. You can't have MI for Michigan in one and then the word Michigan in another. So it all has to be the same, which means you have to go in and make those adjustments. There are some citation pieces, citation formats. So this really wouldn't apply here, I guess, unless you're in the counseling department. But APA is a citation method, and APA requires that certain titles are all lowercase after the first word. It's called sentence case, and you have to tell Zotero that's what you want. And so you just have to pay attention to that. So that's the first piece. The second piece is that sometimes when you spit out your bibliography or your footnote, it has a mistake in the formatting of that. And so you still have to go through line by line and make sure everything is there. The benefit here is that when I open up a Word document, Word has a plugin so that as I'm typing, it's called Cite as you write. And it has a Zotero plugin. And so when I'm ready to cite something, I can just press a button in Word. It pulls up my library. I can type in the resource that I want to cite. I can give it the page number, and then it will pull that in for Turabian. Well, in the case of Turabian, it'll put the footnote in. It'll put the superscript in, and then it will include it into the bibliography. If I'm using APA uses parenthetical notation, which means the parentheses, and it includes the author, comma, date of the publication. It'll do that too. So whatever your citation method is, whatever it's required, it can do that. This is what I use. There's other ones out there. One's called EndNote. I think EndNote, I think EndNote costs money, but I'm not sure that it does. Zotero is free, and all of my resources, all of my documents, everything is uploaded to the cloud, so I don't lose it. Like if something happens to my computer, I don't lose it. All I have to do is re-download the program and then put it in there. And so that's how I organize all of my resources. Does that answer your question? Okay. Anybody else? Z-O, how do you spell Zotero? Z-O-T-E-R-O. If you want to get a hold of me, my email is robb.brewer@tku.edu. I'm full-time faculty, so I office in the 140 building right over here. I'm here pretty much every day of the week, if not in a class, working with students, if not working with students in my office. If not in my office under my desk taking a nap. So I'm kidding, I don't do that. I don't do that. Well, I've enjoyed the time here together today. Those that were not able to stay, missed out the secret sauce, don't give it to them. Don't tell them. This is just for you. All right, bless you guys, and let me know if there's anything I can do for you.